Kia ora and welcome to a new video from NZ Pocket Guide. Today I'm going to tell you everything you need to know about long-term accommodation in New Zealand so you're prepared for your trip there. So without further ado, let's get started. Okay, so to begin with, I want to address everybody that's going to come in New Zealand on a gap year or a working holiday visa. Please, oh please, don't get stuck in only one city. New Zealand is amazing and there is so many amazing places to visit. And we often really hear from a lot of working holiday makers telling us that they regret staying in one city for the majority of their gap year in New Zealand. So please, oh please, consider staying only 3 months at a time in different cities in New Zealand and only getting accommodation for that period of time. Alright, so now let's go through the tips. First up, searching for accommodation in New Zealand, especially long-term accommodation, is kind of old school. So you'd have to look into maybe the local magazine and newspapers, as well as the supermarket board. Yes, the supermarket board still exists in New Zealand. Also, some Facebook group can be quite handy in order to be able to find a flat in New Zealand. Yes, flat is a Kiwi way to say a shared apartment. Okay, the next tip that I want to go over is the cost of moving in. Moving into a long-term accommodation in New Zealand is not that cheap. First up, you will have to pay for a bond, which means that you have to pay for about 4 weeks of rent in order to give it to the landlord. They will give it back to you if the apartment is returned in good order and if you respect your moving out notice. That's the word I was looking for. Plus, you also will have to pay for the first few weeks of your rent. So do be aware that you do need to have a certain amount of cash in order to move into long-term accommodation in New Zealand. For that reason, it is quite important to be in New Zealand when looking for long-term accommodation. There are a lot of people that take advantage of foreigners trying to plan ahead, and therefore it is much better if you have seen in real life the apartment and are able to pay to the person that is going to be your landlord. Next up on the list, we have commuting. It is quite important to actually find your job before finding your accommodation in New Zealand, as it will help you save a lot of money and time on commuting. So if you are planning to stay in a city for a certain amount of time and planning to find a job there, maybe stay in a hostel for a while, look for a job, and once you have found that job, then you can start looking for your accommodation. If you want to have an idea of the different prices that you are expected to pay in different New Zealand cities, you may check out on NZ Pocket Guide or Price Guide, which will give you a good idea. Finally, make sure to write down your notice period when you are booking or renting a place and stick to it, as it is the main cause for landlord to actually keep your bond. If you do not respect your contract, then your landlord is within its right to actually keep the money that you gave them as bond. I should really not record videos while I'm going uphill. Alright, so that's all the tips that I have for you today. There is a lot more on nzpocketguide.com, so check it out. And the whole team is joining me in wishing you the best time ever in New Zealand.